Hi, everybody. Today I have with me Kate House with the Live by Design podcast. Kate helps high achieving women live their life by design and achieve their goals, but from a slightly different perspective. As a recovering people pleaser, I often set goals. I love to set goals, but they tend to fall into one of two categories. One is I'm setting a goal to help everybody else, like is happening now towards the end of the year, beginning of the year, like how do I make the holidays perfect for everybody? But then I kind of get lost in the process and I end up exhausted. Or I set goals where I'm spending so much time focused on other people that I don't get to actually achieve the goals that I set. So I'm super excited to talk to you about this today, Kate. But I'm going to start by having you introduce yourself and tell us kind of a little bit about where you came from, and then let's dive right in.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julie. It is such a pleasure to be here. And I have to say, you are not alone with those struggles with goal setting. So I'm so excited to dive into all of that with you today. But yeah, in a nutshell, so I am Kate House. I am a women's empowerment coach, and I help high achieving women who have little time for themselves set, track, and actually achieve their personal goals with soul with both confidence and clarity. Now, I am not a unicorn. I was not born magically knowing all of this. In fact, it's been a 10-year journey for me of personal growth. It started with a quarter life crisis right at 25. And I woke up one day and just realized I was living this life that looked amazing from the outside. It did have really beautiful pockets in it, but I was doing all the things I thought I was supposed to do. Right? I was Phi Beta Kappa in college, top of my class, first job out of my friends from college. Right? I had the career that everyone said I was supposed to have, and I never really stopped to ask myself, "Is this what I want?" And so I found myself at 25. I had just applied to grad school to get an advanced degree in this field. And it was kind of this crossroads moment for me of being like, oh, if I do this, if I go down this road of more education, student loan debt, all this, like I'm really committed to this. Like I have to really want it. And in that moment, I realized I didn't. And I have this memory of sitting on our hand me down leather couch in our townhouse in Illinois, and I was just crying. And my husband was rubbing my back and he was just like, I wish I could make it better for you. And in that moment, like we don't all get blessed with like a light bulb moment, but like I seem to do everything in big ways. And I did get that light bulb moment.
Nice.
Right? I had that moment where I realized like, if something has to change, I have to do it, right? Nobody's going to come in and do it for me or change my career or how I spend my time or any of those things. And so I was like, oh boy, like I realized two things in that moment. One was that nothing changes if nothing changes. So if I just kept showing up and doing my job and filling my time the way that I wasn't going to feel any differently. And then I realized what I wasn't changing, I was choosing. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to wake up feeling this disconnected. I don't want to wake up feeling kind of directionless or kind of like I've lost my pizzazz, is the best way to put it. And so that started this journey of personal growth. I went and became a yoga teacher. I went from working a traditional 9 to 5 to teaching hot yoga. And from there, I became a health coach and then a podcaster, and now a coach and an author and a keynote speaker. And all I say all this because it all started with just learning to take the next right step and a lot of reflection along the way. And so through that process, I've created the Live by Design Blueprint, which is what we're going to talk about today, where we set our annual intentions and our goals with soul, and then we make it all happen with those daily and those weekly habits. So that's who I am. I also have two little boys running around, two dogs, a husband, two fish,
Awesome.
and now we've got 4 snails in the tank too. So
Be careful, those snails will multiply.
oh, I know. I'm just like, oh gosh. If they just stay in the tank, I'd be happy.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they keep creeping towards the top, and I'm like, don't do it.
Oh, that's funny. Yes. Well, you know what? I really love that. And I love that you said if nothing changes, nothing changes. And if you do this, you are choosing it. Because I know for me, there was a long period of time in there. I kept thinking, oh, someday this is going to be better. Someday I'm going to feel more relaxed. I'm going to feel more secure. I'm going to be happier. But I wasn't doing anything about it. I was just like chugging through my life. And I think it would start with, okay, waking up and saying, hey, you know what? I'm not happy here. And I don't know what to do, but something's got to happen. So when you get to that point, like, what do you say to people who are like,
Yeah.
I know I'm unhappy, but what next? Like, what do I do? How do you get started?
Yeah.
Mode?
Oh man, it's such a great question because so many of us have poured so much of our heart and our souls into our careers, our families, maybe caring for a sick loved one, right? We spent so much time giving of ourselves that we wake up one day and we're like, I don't even know what I like anymore. So I usually counsel people to think of this in two ways. One is to think back. Now, as a coach, I always like to say coaching is very forward facing, and looking back is usually the jobs of our therapists and all of that. But this is the one time that I encourage people to just look back and think about when was a season in your life when you felt the most vibrant or the most energized or the most like yourself, right? And start to just think about what were the things in my life that I did? Did I prioritize joyful movement? Was I eating differently? What did my friendships and relationships look like? Start to think about those different parts of your life. The other way we can think about it, and this kind of dovetails nicely into our chat about intentions, is how do you not want to feel anymore? So for me, I find this one to be really helpful. For a long time, my kids are 18 months apart, so we were in the thick of it, and then the pandemic hit, and it was like a long season of little kids.
Yeah.
And I remember one day waking up and someone asked me, "How you doing?" And my immediate response, without even thinking, was just tired. And I was like, I think I've been saying this for 5 years. Like,
Yeah.
and so I finally was like, okay, well, now I know how I don't want to respond. I don't want to feel tired. I want to feel energized. And so that's actually my word going into 2025 is energized. This year was empowered, and that looks like different areas of my life of really leaning into things that empower me. And now I'm like, okay, energized. I want to not say tired. So I'm going to turn it into something positive, which is energized. And that makes it a lot easier to make decisions because I'm like, okay, does this leave me feeling energized or does this deplete me physically, mentally, emotionally, socially? And then it's a lot easier to make those decisions, especially as a recovering people pleaser.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know what I really like about that is I think a lot of us in the coaching role are always trying to like look at the positive and look at the future and try to aim for what you want. But if you're able to notice what you don't want, then when it shows up, you can recognize it. You can say, okay, wait, this is the thing I didn't want to be doing because we're going to
Yeah.
end up back there for a bit as we start down this road, right?
Absolutely. It's not like a switch flips, right? And we're all of a sudden like our highest self, right? Like I don't know if I'll ever get to be that, but like it's a journey. And when we've acted and conduct ourselves in a specific way for many decades, it takes time to shift it. But I love how you point that out because it becomes like the canary in the coal mine. Like it gets to be that little warning bell of, oh, wait, hang on, pause. And my therapist taught me something. She has me say, oh, isn't that curious? So that way I'm not judging. I'm just being like, oh, isn't that interesting? Isn't that curious that I'm slipping back into this pattern of behavior? And then I can figure out, oh, it's because I'm stressed or it's because of X, Y, or Z. And then it's a lot easier to kind of get back on the path of pursuing those goals with soul.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. So we can set an intention. So I want to be more energized. I want to feel happier. I want to be more engaged. I want like whatever the intention that you would have for this. And we're recording this right before the beginning of the year. So we're going to get to set this up right as the year starts. And what do I want my year to be like?
Yeah.
What's like how then you need to do something about that. You need to take
Yes.
action with it, right?
Yes.
So you've got goals with soul that you like to set
Mhm.
like ideas around how to do this, how to take action in a way that works.
Yeah.
And I know I've struggled with that because SMART goals like never
Mhm.
did it for me. So talk a little bit about your goal setting and how that came about and how it works. And yeah,
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you, Julie. Yeah, so I would say if the intention is how you want to feel over the next 12 months, it's different than a resolution, right? Your intention, it
yeah,
isn't this tangible like thing that you're going to achieve, right? It's a feeling. So now we need to think about what are the things that we can pursue that encourage this feeling. So it's kind of like a top down approach. So we've got the intention. We know what we want to feel. We want to feel energized. We want to feel calm. We want to feel purposeful. We want to feel present is a word that's come up in my community a lot. So we pick this intention, and if it doesn't come to you right away, friends, like that's okay. Sit with it, and normally the universe has this way of like tossing it your direction, and you'll be like, "Oh, that's a good one. I think that's the one that resonates." Right. So give yourself a couple days. If it doesn't come right to you, that's totally fine. But then we want to set our goals with soul. The goals with soul are the things that we can work towards and achieve. So I like to think of a goal with soul as four things. And I love that you brought up SMART goals because, like, sure, there's a time and a place for them, but like, I don't know about you, I am not a super analytical person. I am like a feelings oriented being. And so, SMART goals, especially the time bound part, I find to have a little trouble with because so many of my goals that I've accomplished, especially over the last decade, took so much longer than I thought. And so if I had set a time bound goal of like, okay, I'm going to have a top 2% globally ranked podcast in the first 6 months, I would have stopped 4 years ago, but it wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of developed these goals with soul for the women who have a lot of hats that we wear, right? Maybe we're a partner, maybe we have kids, maybe we have a career, we're doing all these things. So goal with soul is four things. The first is that it's aspirational. Future Kate, future Julie, we've got this, right? 6 months from now, 12 months from now, I'm like, future me can absolutely do this thing. Currently, maybe feel some butterflies. Maybe my palms get a little sweaty. My current goal with soul, just to be super transparent, I love to give examples, is I'm writing my first book, which I'm confident future Kate will be very capable of. Current Kate is still in the first draft phase, but I get to become the woman I want to be in the pursuit of this goal. So it's aspirational. Future us, totally got it. Current you, a little trepidatious, but that's okay. We want to just be 4% outside of our comfort zone. And that statistic comes from James Clear's Atomic Habits, where he talks about your sweet spot for creation, for feeling like you're in this flow state. It happens outside your comfort zone, not so far out your comfort zone that you're like, this is just nope. It's 4%. It's the next right step. So we start with aspirational. On the flip side of that, it's attainable. And these might seem like they're in antithesis with one another, but it's attainable in that if you show up consistently over 6 months, over 12 months, you can do it. So I know if I keep showing up and I've got a little walking pad over here. I think the best when I am moving. And so I walk and I type and I write my book, right? And if I do that enough times, I will have a first draft. And so it's aspirational. I haven't done this before, but it is attainable. I know the process I can follow to do it. And if you're not, if the attainability piece is a question mark for you, that is a great sign to talk with Julie, hire a coach, work with someone one-on-one, find a course, find a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
Get support. This is the chance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Bring in the people who are a couple steps ahead of you, right? So we start with aspirational, we go to attainable. The next one, and this is probably the most important for this community, all of us recovering people pleasers, it's meaningful. It's cheesy to say, but my husband is like dad joke extraordinaire. And so he goes, you can't spell meaningful without the word me. And I was like, awesome. That's good, babe. But how often have we set these goals for ourselves that we feel pressured to pursue because of societal expectations, cultural expectations, familial expectations, right? I want this goal with soul. I mean, it gives me goosebumps when I say it. I want it to mean something to you. You don't need to justify it to anybody else. And in fact, if you're surrounded by people who are not bringing you up, who are not supporting you, who are not encouraging, who aren't asking, how can I support you? Or just cheering you on, maybe you keep this goal with soul in your heart for a while, or you go find that community that will cheer you on. Don't let the naysayers keep you from doing it. The negative Nancy's, you know who they are. Don't share the goal with soul with them. Right. So it's meaningful to you. And then the last piece is just, it's seasonally appropriate. And I don't necessarily mean the season of the year. Now, if you want to grow a garden, seasonally appropriate might be important. But what I mean is, what season of life are you in? Are you an empty nester? Did your kids just start college and now your day-to-day schedule looks different? Did you retire recently? Do you have a newborn? That's a big one with the women in my community, where I'm like, okay, you have a brand new baby. So this season of life is beautiful and it just looks different. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just another season. And we know that life has these rhythms and these cycles to it. So if this is a season where you're caring for an ailing or sick parent or grandparent, then your goal with soul, we want it to reflect that because we want you to be honest with yourself to continue to grow and to reach for things, to get outside that comfort zone, but to also couple it with, okay, well, but where am I right now? And that way we're really setting ourselves up for success in whatever way you want to define success for yourself.
That's great. You know what I'm hearing as you talk about all four of the aspects of this goal with soul is a big heaping dose of kindness for yourself. Like,
Yeah.
who am I? What do I want? And can I do this in a way where I'm not getting too critical of myself for not doing it on some particular time frame or trying to do it and it's not working and feeling like it's all on me for not
Right.
done when in fact if you got two kids 18 months apart it's going to be
Right.
hard to like write a book, for example. Like it's not going to happen,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So to be realistic and be kind, I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that really puts you in a place where you can approach the idea that I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I also love that you said don't share it with the negative Nancy's because
Right.
they will so pull you down. They will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because you reaching for this goal, you working towards this future version of yourself that's energized, that's empowered, that's present, whatever that intention is for yourself, it sometimes it can make other people reflect on where they're at and they're like, well, I don't feel great, but they're not doing anything about it. So they're just going to criticize you. And we don't have time for that. I don't know about you guys, but the older I get, the more my friend group gets more, it's a little smaller, but it gets so much deeper.
Yes.
And so you don't have to share the soul with everybody. And in fact, if they're a negative Nancy or an energy vampire, they just suck the energy out of you when you spend time with them. Create those healthy boundaries. It's okay to prioritize yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what you need to do that sometimes and be brave to do it because it's important for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things that I've struggled with when I set goals, even if I give myself plenty of time, is just this feeling like I'm doing so much for everybody else. And I'm getting into this place where I'm starting to feel overwhelmed emotionally with what everybody else wants me to do and what I want to do. Like, do you have any like suggestions for how to keep a line on what's important to me when you're busy with a lot of other things? Is
Yeah.
there some special like tidbit you can tell me about that?
Yeah. So, what I would say is to align your intention and then your goals with soul into these daily habits that support not only the goal of soul coming to fruition, but most importantly, caring for yourself. Because what I'm hearing in this question, if I were to like mirror it back, is you might feel tired. You're mentally exhausted from the feelings of overwhelm, right? And a lot of times when we feel that way, it's because we're not getting the rest that we need. And I recently taught in my group coaching program on 7 different kinds of rest that aren't sleep. So
Oh,
seven
okay.
ways that we can rejuvenate ourselves, whether that's like taking a sensory break, so turning off screens and like reading. I'm like the biggest advocate for reading an actual book, right? Like if
Uh-huh.
if I sit at the end of the night and I just spend 20 minutes sitting in my reading chair by our Christmas tree, like I feel so relaxed afterwards, right? And that's not sleep. Like I'm not ready to go to bed, but it's time for me to spend with myself. There's creative rest. Do you like to draw or paint or work with clay or act? Like there's so many different ways that we can be creative. And it doesn't have to be sleep. It could even be like going for a walk, right? And so a lot of times we need to address like, are we caring for ourselves? Like I like to think of it as the holistic self, right? Like your mind, your body, and your spirit. Um, and are we caring for ourselves? Because yes, if we layer on goals with soul when we're also like, I'm depleted from all the things, like your goal might be beautiful and your intention might be powerful, but if you are at capacity, it's going to be really hard to pursue those things. So that would be my suggestion, is like, create a habit for yourself, whether it's daily, whether it's weekly, that's rejuvenating for you. And don't feel guilty. It's okay to take time for yourself, even if it's like, I've got this like pop-up sauna thing in my basement. It is not aesthetically pleasing by any means, but when I sit in there in the heat, like, it just feels so good. And like 20 minutes later, I just feel like reinvigorated. And so sometimes it's about finding those just little things that you can do for yourself, repeated over time, because they like to say, consistency compounds. And so what can we do for ourselves that supports our well-being? That's a long-winded answer, but
Yeah,
that's
no,
what I would do.
that was great. That was great. I really like that, because you can start with little things during the day, even if you can't work on the goal itself, right? You can take care of yourself,
Yeah.
is what I'm hearing
And
you say, and that will lead you to that.
exactly. And this year, when my word was empowered for 2024, I spent the first quarter of the year, my empowered habits were, the first month, getting good sleep. Like,
Right.
I got the blackout shades. I worked on getting my 5-year-old to actually stay in his bed, right? I gave myself an evening routine. Like, how do I start to come down from the day and get into this more restful place, so that when I lay down to sleep, my brain isn't like monkey chatter in my head, right? So that was the first month. The second month was like, okay, now that the evening routine is set, let's work on the morning routine. And how do I start my day from a place feeling empowered? And then the third month, I started, now that I was getting good rest and starting the day off really well, how do I layer in more movement into my day? Because I feel better when I move on a regular basis. And so those goals with soul aren't like the sexiest goals out there, right? But it was important to do those in the first quarter of the year before I got to the second half of the year and I started writing my book. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes we have to go back to foundations. And that doesn't mean that you're bad. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It just means that other things had to take priority. And now you get to prioritize yourself again.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the goals with soul are self-care related, and not self-care like bubble baths and, face masks. Those are great. But what actually nourishes you from the inside out?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really like that, because it reinforces this idea that you're worth taking care of.
Yeah.
And if you get to that sort of belief within yourself, like deep in your bones kind of belief,
Mm-hmm.
not the one that's up here in our heads, right? But we've lived it enough, a whole quarter, then it's a little easier to take that step into, oh, I can do this for myself and it's okay.
Yeah.
So that's just so beautiful. That's so
Yeah,
beautiful.
it's a muscle that we're strengthening with just consistent repetition. And there's this saying, I think this is from Atomic Habits as well. He says, never miss twice. So if you have a day where life happens, your kid comes home with a stomach bug, like, I mean, I've got a first grader and a kindergartner. That is not uncommon around here. Your day gets thrown off. That's okay. Just start again tomorrow, right? Just don't miss twice, and just be kind to yourself.
Yeah. The other thing he says that I love is to just show up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you only need, like, for example, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to work out for 45
Mm-hmm.
minutes a day, right? I think that's his example. Some days
Mm-hmm.
you don't have that time.
Yeah.
But if you just like put on your gym clothes or drive to the gym, and that's just, this is my intention,
Yeah.
or I do it for 10 minutes, I've done it.
Yes.
Like, it's enough for today because of everything else. So that
Exactly.
you haven't missed it, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yep, you just adjusted. It's reflecting the day that you're having, and we're not robots. Our days are not going to be like every Monday looks exactly like this. Like, at least not in my life.
Right, right, right. And your piece of the goals with soul on being seasonally appropriate, I think we can
Mm-hmm.
even micro that down to being appropriate for the day or whatever's
Yeah.
how the day's unfolding. right? Because
Yeah,
we often don't
absolutely.
have control over how the day unfolds. If your 5-year-old is sick, you didn't have control over that, right?
Exactly.
So to understand that, what's appropriate for today, given what has shown up.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's okay to ask for help. Sometimes as the oldest child in a family of high achievers, I have had to learn the value of asking for help and asking for support. And thankfully, I have like the world's most supportive partner. My husband's incredible, and he had to get in the habit of asking how he could help. And now I'm at a point where I am better at being like, oh no, I do feel overwhelmed. How can I ask for support? Or like, oh, our day's kind of gotten thrown out the window. How can we work on this together? And then asking for help, it sometimes feels uncomfortable when it's new to us, but it is so helpful.
Yes, 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 it is so helpful. And you know what? And our partners often want to help us, or our
Exactly.
friends want to help us, right? And
Yeah.
we just feel like we're being a burden, and
Yeah.
we're not. We're giving them the opportunity to do something for us, and
Mm-hmm.
that feels good to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such a lovely conversation. I feel like I've learned a lot about this, and then I have to think about my intention for the year, but
Yeah.
I really like that idea.
Does something start to come to mind for you? Can you feel into it? Or are you like, no, I think I need to sit with this for a little bit?
I kind of feel like it might be relaxed
Yes, I love that.
because, I'm go, go, go. I'm doing
Yeah.
so many things.
Yeah. I love that. And what does when you feel relaxed? Is that peaceful? Is it still like, what is relaxed? Like, ideal future Julie, when she feels relaxed, like, what does that look like for you?
It's kind of like if I want to read a book, I can sit down and do it, and I don't feel this like, oh, well, what else should I be doing? Because reading a book is not doing anything. It's just sitting
Yeah.
there, right?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
maybe I've got this like wild dream that someday I'm
Mhm.
going to take a watercolor painting class.
Ooh.
And maybe it would be feeling like I have the time to do that
Mhm.
without squeezing it into everything else. So to set things
Yeah.
up so that or when I cook dinner sometimes and I really want to like do all the spices and chop all the vegetables, and that takes time, but you can do it in a
Yeah.
relaxed way. So
Yeah.
to go into
I
these,
love that.
like, I'm going to do this thing that I enjoy doing, but
Mhm.
I'm going to incorporate this feeling into it instead of being focused on, oh, I got to get this done before the next thing happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Feels like a very present experience,
Mhm.
right? Like that saying of like, be where your feet are. Like,
Yeah.
I'm picturing you like cooking dinner and your mind isn't like thinking about like, it's not drafting the next email. It's like, oh no, I'm going to like be here and like enjoy the process, the sensory experience of cooking this meal.
Yeah. 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 And
I
not, and
love that.
totally, and not worrying about what the next thing is or what I've forgotten.
Oh, girl, I hear you. I have the note section of my phone is hilarious because every time I'm like, oh, I forgot this, I just put it in the note section.
That's funny. That's funny. Okay, well, this has been super informative. I hope people check out your podcast, Live by Design, because it's got a lot chock full of just so much good information about how to do this and how to live your life by design. Do it
Oh.
intentionally. Yeah. Where else can people find you?
Yeah, well, come over to the podcast. Julie's one of our upcoming guests, chatting all about everyone's favorite topic of people pleasing. It was such a dynamic and just so insightful conversation. So, anywhere you get to listen to your podcast, the Live by Design podcast with Kate House. Online, I am Miss Kate House because there's another Kate House in the world. So I am MS Kate House, just like a house on Instagram. It's also my website, misskatehouse.com. And if you enjoy this conversation on Goals with Soul, I do a free summit every year in the spring, usually around April, and it's called the Goals with Soul Summit. So if you hear this, you get really fired up and spring rolls around and you're like, oh wait, maybe things have petered out a little bit. Maybe you've moved through a different season of life and you want to revisit this, you can come join us over there as well. It's free to join and it's just a really fun week together.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be a fun week. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, well, we'll stay tuned for that. And okay, well, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. I get so excited when I look at my schedule for the day and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to have this conversation. So thank you for being such a ray of sunshine in my day.
You've been a ray in my day, so thank you very much. Take care.